Perhaps the most unbearable thing about the modern world is the lack of art. Now, well, immediately it's an incorrect statement. The lack of living art, active art, what do I mean by that? The biggest lie that is purported throughout society is that art is personal expression. Now, like any good lie, it in of itself is true. The statement is true, but the context is false. Because when you can't implement or use your expression in any real way, then that's just what it is. It's just a personal expression, no more, no less. And there's that book, The War of Art, and I guess maybe they should have taken it more literally. There's this obsession with beauty right now. I'm in the park, and this huge garden that takes thousands and thousands of people's hours every week. It is purely for a fake sense of beauty. Like what are the aspects of the garden? Well, the first one is that it's extremely cultivated and extremely I think one of the centerpieces typify what the garden is, where they've bred every colour of rose. Now, not every colour, obviously. That's a hard thing to do, but it really shows you what is the intention. Because what are roses? They're temporary. Even the fact that we give roses as a symbol of love is very, is itself very pathological. What is a rose? It comes, it goes. It's a mating symbol. It's really the most reduced form, It's kind of like giving roses on Valentine's Day. It's kind of like giving socks for Christmas. It's a very obvious symbol. So the fact that the garden year round cultivates this circle of roses, of every colour of rose, like everything in this world, it's like the fancy car. Which city can have the most quote-unquote beautiful garden? Of course, they don't really understand what beauty is, because anyone who has their eyes open doesn't appreciate the circle of flowers. The saying that I always remembered was angels don't enjoy things for their appearance itself, but for what it symbolizes. Just because a diamond is shiny doesn't mean it's good. Yes, the postmodernists were right. It's all about context, blah blah blah. And of course, it's not a deficiency of real art. I know, such a contentious term. It's an excess of the fake. The garden mirrors the artificial world. So the cultivated nature mirrors the natural world, and the artificial stone world, and if anything, it's much more obvious what's going on in the artificial stone world when you simply look at the garden. It's a museum-like pursuit. This desire to get as many different breeds of plants packed into the same area on display, cold, closed, surrounded by mown grass, which is dead, to take the living out of its context and to simply show it on display really has a pornographic element to it. And of course, tricking people into taking that as beauty is just another step of the mind control. To trick you into appreciating something for its form itself. Does it look good? Does it mean something to you? It's art. That's what they want. Doesn't matter if it's dead. Doesn't matter if it's pulled out of its context. Doesn't matter if everything that's living has been reduced to a static image. It may as well be an image, even though it's real. Real art is always it's always fuck's sakes. Obviously it's about your intention. I'm not the first person to say this. Is what's that fucking painting called? Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow and Blue? Is that art? No, not in my opinion. Is the giant metal balloon dog, is that art? No. Is graffiti art? Maybe. But I think, here I am going to be a classic. I think graffiti is closer to art than any of that shit, because at least it is the personal expression, but you can't escape the performance side to it. It's like if you're a dancer, you have to dance, or if you're making music, eventually you have to play it to someone. So it always has this performative presentation. I guess you would call it the excessive, if you want to get technical, you would call it the excessive Apollonian desire to have everything static, which, ultimately leads to control. Obviously in other places of the world, with like drum circles and stuff, they have an excess of the opposite, excess of the Dionysian. They can't fucking sit down for 1 second and look at themselves in the mirror. But again, I'm not the first person to say it, but the West, the West, what does the West mean? But whatever that means. We've become obsessed with the mirror, What does, of course, I had to do this, interpreting the bad art. What does the giant metal balloon dog mean? Well, it's an obsession with the reflection and the container itself. This obsession with the reflective surface, because that's all it is, and the Orthodox people pointed this out far before me, but that's all it is a mirror. If you want to take art to that extreme, even if it is, it's still a balloon dog, you could say there's meaning in that, but it's definitely the minor element. There's more a personal choice. Because obviously there's no such thing as art. There is artistic aspect, Our political billboards, are they art? Well, they could be. But you notice there's a desire to cultivate everything perfectly increases, it just becomes dead. You think about how much effort, how much time goes into maintaining these massive gardens, how many people it takes, and yet those in control are unwilling to spend even a fraction of the money to discuss solutions to their problems. So again, Lacan was right. Beauty always functions in context. Obviously not essentially, but in this world, you have beauty next to whatever you want to call it, pragma. Well, I do think it's easy to take that too far. Like the Orthodox people, they say, in the image of the woman, there is like fun, or like, it's kind of a degrading word in of itself, like enjoyment or something like that, You could say, if you take, it's like, really, they're too afraid to say it, but really it's like the bimbo archetype. It's like, if you take the feminine to its extreme, it is this creature that, may as well be made out of like candy floss or something. It's almost like the slime girl, if you're going to take it even further than that, where it's like, it's a creature that exists for like this dynamic, free nature. And then on the other end you have the pragmatic, which of course is the mother. I don't think that's a good idea. How can I say? Like, we shouldn't be studying life. A lot of the Indians say this, so one of the few things that I agree with them on. It's like, if you dissect something, you kill it. So you can study it, you can study anything, but you have to kill it first. So in the same way, if you're going to analyze these archetypes and try to apply them to society, you know, what do you hope to achieve? It's a very empty statement as well. Like, sure, you can extract the pornographic image out of anything. You can extract the pragmatic image out of anything. You know, you're not really saying anything. To say, the object exists between this dipole, this dipole, this dipole. A lot of art seeks to do that. It seeks to do it as a fake meaning. I don't want to use the word political because it's not. Philosophical would be closer, but because people can't really understand, you know, political will serve far enough. Like I was saying it with the gardens, it's like the work of art exists in a political context. If you say, we're going to change the aesthetic of the garden, we're going to let all the grass grow 2 feet high, 3 feet high, it's an artistic action, but it's you know, also quote unquote political, not really philosophical, but people today are so consumed they would interpret it as political. So that's the meaning in the art. There is no need to create or find the meaning of a piece. That's the other thing, that it's a lie that's continued for so long. These attempts to dissect beauty, that's why. It's because they have no real context of meaning, so they have to kind of, it's like a drama, you know. You could have a normal day, everything goes fine, or you could just create a problem intentionally. You know, obviously it's not meaningless in itself. You will gain something through coming through that tension, but still it's a drama that is self-created. This desire for cut lawns and timid ducks and chihuahuas, you know, where does it end? That's the other thing, because where it ends is it ends with us. It's that we become the timid chihuahuas.